of failing in public. Failure feels bad to us, and worse when we think others can see it. Think about the last time you made a big mistake that a lot of people saw. You can already feel the hairs standing up on the back of your neck and the blush crawling up toward your ears, can't you? These are deep instincts, wired into our very nature. But we make them worse by the way we think about failure. We tend to assume that failure happens because someone, somewhere did something wrong. In fact, often failure is the result of doing something very right, trying something that you've never done before, maybe something that no one's ever done before. But because failure doesn't feel good, we spend an enormous amount of time trying to engineer failure out of our lives and out of our society. We're devoting ever more of our lives to seeking out what P.J. O'Rourke dubbed the whiffle life, the life in which nothing can ever go seriously awry. The upper middle class obsesses about sterling educational credentials. Children are practically encased in bubble wrap before they're allowed to step outside, never without copious adult supervision. And if something does, God forbid, go wrong, we start looking for someone to sue. Someone, a regulator, a company, an expert, is supposed to be able to guarantee our perfect safety. The metaphor for our age is the disappearance of high monkey bars from playgrounds across the country. We've made it impossible for children to fall very far, and in so doing, we've robbed them of the joys of climbing high. This is a terrible mistake. It's the mistake made by the victims of Bernie Madoff's notorious Ponzi scheme, the largest financial fraud in U.S. history. The most amazing thing about Madoff's scheme is that it was a selective club. People had to wheedle their way in. Why were they cajoling their way into a Ponzi scheme? Not because the returns were unusually high. In fact, they weren't spectacular by hedge fund standards. What attracted people to Madoff was the fact that the returns were unusually safe. He delivered 12% year after year, bull market or bear, boom or recession. People went to Madoff because they thought they'd found a guaranteed no-lose proposition. In hindsight, they should have known that this was impossible. The economy is changing faster than ever, so how could Madoff get the same return regardless of what happened? His victims were seduced by what you might call the technocratic fallacy. The idea that someone who is sufficiently smart and dedicated can engineer the risk out of the system. This gives us a nice, warm, cozy feeling. And that nice, warm, cozy feeling is the most dangerous sensation we can have. There's no such thing as a risk-free investment strategy, in finance or in life. As Madoff's victims found out, the riskiest strategy is to try to work yourself into a position where you can't fail. The failure, when it comes, tends to be catastrophic, in part because you haven't prepared for it. Our declining ability to take risks and to bounce back when things don't work out is already beginning to play out. New firms, which have long been the engine of economic innovation and growth, aren't being created as fast as they once were. Laid-off workers aren't being reabsorbed by the job market. We're frozen, unable to tell whether the light we're staring into is the end of the tunnel or an oncoming train. There's a better way to do this. Since we cannot succeed simply by not failing, we should stop spending so much energy trying to avoid failure or engineer it away. Instead, we should embrace it, smartly. We should encourage people to fail early and often by making sure that their failures are learning opportunities, not catastrophes. Unfortunately, schools don't teach failure. But maybe they should. What would such a school teach? It would bring back high monkey bars and let kids learn that the price of reaching lofty heights is the occasional broken arm. It would not try to pretend that there are no wrong answers. Instead of protecting kids from failure, teachers would encourage them to face it.